Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. It's Funmi speaking on this audit today, principal attorney at the law firm. So I want us to look at Fenty and I want us to take a look at its cookie notice posture, what type of information it gives consumers about how it uses cookies, and what type of insights we can take away for other global organizations that are looking to either create a cookie notice, optimize the cookie notice they currently have, and what type of data flow an organization can consider when they are putting together a cookie notice. So without further ado, let's take a look at Fenty. So some of these organizations, they've been putting their cookie information with their privacy notice. Now, I'm not sure what Fenty Beauty does. Fenty Beauty actually has a cookie policy. So for anybody that's new and not familiar with the brand, they do makeup. And we've been looking at quite a few of the beauty industry global organizations and what their privacy posture is. So the first thing that we can see is we have the cookie banner. That was the first thing that we encountered when we landed on this website. I'm going to take a look at the privacy settings. So they do have this preference center. This is very interesting. So a lot of the cookie audits that we've done so far, they've been powered by OneTrust. Now, if you see this as a consumer, powered by Clarip, what this signifies is Fenty has gone into some type of agreement with this organization, Clarip. Clarip provides a service, at a minimum, a consent management platform. Now, for consumers, what this means in simple terms is there's a product that interacts with the Fenty site. Clarip is offering it. And what Clarip provides Fenty is they provide this preference center. So the privacy team at Fenty, they have access to this preference center because they can manage how consumers opt in to certain types of cookies. So in simple terms, anytime consumers land on this site, if I reject all of the cookies and I confirm my choices, what that's going to signify is, one, it lets the website know that I'm not going to allow targeting cookies or performance cookies or functional cookies. There are strictly necessary cookies that are always on that I don't have choice about. But for these ones, I have choice about, and I'm going to confirm my choices. Now, Clarip provides insight into the Fenty privacy team and shows them, hey, this particular consumer has opted out of these, so there shouldn't be any trackers associated with targeting cookies. I shouldn't see any Fenty Beauty products whenever I'm looking at a different website, whatever the relationship may be with Fenty and its advertising partners. So consumers should be aware of that. If you don't opt out of these types of cookies, you'll see that there's a lot of advertising that will be done by these businesses and organizations on other websites, depending on who their advertising partners are. Now, I can't tell that for sure, but I always opt out of these because I think it's always interesting to see which vendor or which business I'm seeing ads on different platforms like Amazon, etc. So this is the first time I'm actually encountering Clarip, but I'm familiar with a lot of other third-party vendors. And we can see here, I just hovered over Clarip. It says, the most powerful enterprise privacy governance platform. My presumption is that Clarip actually provides additional services outside of this preference center. But this is something that Fenty has outsourced to this organization, which is why you'll see this here. So let's confirm my choices. I want us to get into the cookie notice. Now, I call it a notice. It says here, cookie policy. I am intrigued because we're just given a button. So I'm not sure if there's an alternate cookie notice or policy. I want to make a distinction because this is something we've encountered in other audits. A lot of businesses call this public-facing document a cookie policy. Now, the definition of policy from a privacy perspective is generally an internal document that provides insight to internal stakeholders about how cookies are managed. Generally, from a privacy language perspective, what's generally placed on the website is a notice. You're basically telling consumers and customers what your privacy practices are. The policy then goes into detail, and generally you won't share that with your consumers. You generally have that internally with the stakeholders that facilitate cookies for the website. Maybe your IT team, it could be your marketing team. And that's really important because generally we just saw on the banner that Fenty does utilize targeting cookies, and then I also think I saw performance. I'm not entirely sure because I've closed it now. But that information is really crucial for a marketing team because it allows them to know which of the products and services are probably performing the best. And then it allows them to know how best to target you if you decide to click off of the Fenty Beauty website. Now, I'm going to click this button and see what happens. Maybe it'll bring up the preference center that we saw earlier. Now, this is a bit problematic because I'm clicking on this button, but it doesn't lead anywhere. So this is probably a fix that needs to be done. And then I am also intrigued that we are promised a cookie policy on this site, but there's nothing that shows up. And the button that's there actually isn't functional. So it's really important for organizations to make sure that buttons like this work, because if it was in fact that a regulator was the one that was reviewing this and not me, they would ask for insight into 1, what the cookie policy is, and 2, what the settings look like. If I as a consumer can't even get access to it, how do I know what Fenty Beauty is doing right now? And that's really important, and consumers should know that. I'm going to go back to the privacy preferences. I want us to talk about language. Let's see. Okay, so this one is specific, do not sell or share my information. It's not clear to me whether or not this has anything to do with the cookies at all, but the previous preference center that we reviewed, I'm going to see if I can see that again. If we can manage the cookies that we originally had opted out of, but unfortunately the cookie setting button doesn't work. I'm going to reload the page. Okay. So I'm going to mention something about the fact that I'm not able to manage my cookie settings on this page. There's terminology in the privacy space. It's called consent. There are different factors that constitute consent from a data protection standpoint. And one of the things that consent requires is if an individual provides consent, businesses have to make sure that it's just as easy to give consent as it is to withdraw consent. So I actually did not opt into any of the optional cookies when we originally looked at the preference center. But if I wanted to then go ahead and opt in, I should be able to do that just as easily as I did when I opted out. Okay. I'm going to go to the privacy notice and see what's stated there. It may be that we're able to adjust the cookie preferences here. So cookie and similar tracking technologies, generally these privacy notices will also talk about cookies because cookies are personal data. For anybody that is new here, I've talked about this extensively, not just in the privacy notices that I've reviewed, but also in the cookie notice and cookie policy audits that I've been doing on this channel. But ultimately, a cookie can identify an individual, so it's really important for your organization to take note if cookies are being utilized on the site. So I think what's also very interesting is even though there are links and URLs to try and click on information about cookies, we can scroll to the bottom, but the actual links don't work on the site. And I don't know if that's on my side, but it's definitely something that the IT team needs to manage to ensure that consumers have insights into the privacy practices of Fenty Beauty when it comes to cookies and similar technologies. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom and see what the provision actually says. We use a variety of technologies such as cookies, web beacons, clear GIFs, pixels, internet tags, and browser weblogs to gather information when you visit or interact with our website, mobile apps, and email communications. So I want to make mention of this because I don't think I've talked about this at all on this channel. I've talked a lot about the sophistication in technology. There are providers now that allow, whenever you receive those marketing emails, there are certain embedded links and URLs and technologies that companies can place in email communications that they send to you that allow them to track what you're clicking on, what you're viewing when it comes to the email marketing. And that's why they've put this information related to email communications. Let's say, for example, Fenty Beauty sends you an email and it's like, here's some information about this new lipstick. That email communication, if you choose to open it, it's likely that Fenty can track that you've opened it. If you click on the lipstick itself, it's likely they can track that as well, which is why they've put a variety of technologies, because that insight is then fed back to the marketing team and they can see user 202 has clicked on the lipstick. And if they have enough information about that, then they can then further conduct additional marketing because they know so many people within a specific geography have clicked on this link. And the fact that it can lead back to user 202, for example, constitutes personal data because it identifies you as an individual. Cookies are small text files that are placed on your computer or mobile device by websites you visit. We use this information for a variety of purposes, such as to make our websites work properly, to make a user's experience more efficient, understand how visitors, etc. For more information about how our website uses cookies and to update your preferences, click the cookie settings link. Now that's interesting because I tried to click the cookie settings link and I wasn't able to do anything. So that's something that definitely needs to be corrected. I'm going to search on this page last time and see if there's an alternate link that we can click. What's interesting is you may opt out of targeted advertising of your personal information for purposes of cross-context behavioral advertising by clicking the cookie setting link on our footer. So let's go to the footer and see if that's something that's accessible now, because it wasn't accessible before, and I'm not entirely sure where they're referring to be clicked, but there's only 3 mention of cookie settings on this entire page, and I'm pretty sure we've looked through all of them. So this is another reason why it's so important as a business to have privacy counsel review these notices for you to make sure that everything aligns. Because if you're stating to your consumers that they can click a link below in the footer and then there is no link in the footer, that's quite problematic. It says here, click the cookie settings link in the footer. I just went to the footer and it's not there. There's nothing here. If you click on your privacy preferences, it talks about do not sell or share. So this was last updated, surprisingly, July 1st, 2025. It may be that they're doing something on the back end to fix the cookie settings link. But really and truthfully, it's really important to make sure that all of the links on your privacy notice, privacy policy, cookies notice, and cookie settings all work. So I really hope you enjoyed this audit. If you have questions about my review, leave them below. I'd love to speak with your organization about what your privacy posture is and if you're looking to improve it, and I'll see you in another audit.